Welcome back to First Team Fantasy. In this episode, we are going to be covering the Niners who traveled to Cleveland to take on the Browns. It was an ugly one. We saw by far the worst start from Brock Purdy we've seen, his first regular season loss of his career. It was an ugly one, 1917 Browns. Brock Purdy was 12 of 27, 125 yards, a touchdown, and interception. 8.7 fantasy points. I mean, people were talking about, because we saw McCaffrey leave with injury, we saw Debo leave with injury, and
Well, let me start it off by saying going into this week for betting odds, Brock Purdy was the favorite to win the MVP award.
yeah, it just shows how high everyone was on Brock Purdy coming into this. And it kind of, people are already talking about when he doesn't have a completely stacked all-pro lineup, when he plays a real defense without some of those guys, how will he perform? And I mean, I'm not saying this is indicative for how he'll perform in the future without guys like this, but it was a rough week. 8.7 fantasy points. I mean, that's just tough. McCaffrey was solid when he was in. 11 carries, 43 yards, 3 catches on 3 targets for 9 yards and a touchdown. 14.2 fantasy points. He only played 58% of snaps. You're happy with that turnout? I mean, 14.2 and dang near 60% of snaps is very solid. Worth noting, he went out. They're saying it's an oblique and a rib injury. We're going to monitor him coming into this next week, but if there is a world where we miss McCaffrey for a week or however long, it was weird because Eli Mitchell returned from injury and everyone expected him to kind of step in as that number 2 running back, and that was just not the case. Eli Mitchell carried the ball 2 times for -3 yards, finished with -0.3 fantasy points, only played 11% of snaps. On the other side of it, Jordan Mason, I mean, he made good with the opportunities he was given. I mean, he only carried the ball 5 times for 27 yards and a touchdown, so I mean, efficient on the ground. 8.7 fantasy points and 24% of snaps. That's not something like I'm seeing Jordan Mason as like the number 1 guy picked up on the waiver wire right now. If McCaffrey does miss a week, I'm not completely sold that it's just going to be Jordan Mason's backfield. It was Eli Mitchell's first game back from injury. We've seen his capability of running behind that Niners offensive line. I mean, it's worth a shot to pick up Mason if McCaffrey does miss time. I just personally wouldn't blow, if you're in a fab league, I'm not blowing a bunch of fab on him. I don't know how you feel about that.
No, I mean, I feel similar because not only is it in question of who is going to take over I mean, Jordan Mason has looked good with his opportunities. I'm pretty sure he scored a touchdown last week on a fairly big run. It was at the end of the game, garbage time, whatever, but he's looked good on his opportunities and he's been available. So that might give him a leg up if, going into this next week. Do you know who they're playing coming up?
Minnesota.
Minnesota. They're playing
Minnesota.
Minnesota. So, I mean, I don't hate it. Like, I'd be willing to throw a small bid or just make a claim if you really need a running back, because I mean, Derrick Henry is going to be out this week.
Aaron
Who
Jones.
else has? Yeah. No, Aaron Jones.
No, this is week 6.
Previous week. Yeah. Next week is the Titans.
Jeez, I'm just gonna blank on the team buys.
Bengals. I'm not sure who else aside from the Titans and Bengals, but just with that, you're missing Joe Mixon. You're missing the opportunity to play Tyjae Spears if you needed him, and you're also missing Derrick Henry, just at the very least, to go along with the other injuries that we had this week that we will be covering, but also Christian McCaffrey. So, yeah, I mean, I think Jordan Mason is a decent pickup, but you have to remember, guys like this, you can't really blow all your fab on a rental, because that's what they are, because Christian McCaffrey is going to come back and they're going to be rendered useless.
Yeah, and just to confirm, the week 7 buys, the Panthers, so Miles and Chuba, the Bengals, Mixon, the Cowboys, Pollard, the Jets,
Tony,
Brees, the Titans, which Spears and Henry,
DH and Spears, yeah.
and then the Texans. So Damian Pierce. So it is a decent.
Damian
There's going to be a
Pierce,
decent running
yeah.
backs missing this week.
So it's like if you need a running back, I'd just be careful because he's not someone that you're going to be able to use for too
Extended
long. So
periods of
yeah,
time.
when
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey comes back, that's it.
Yeah, and then take us to the receiver room. Ayuk, only caught 4 catches for 76 yards, 11.6. Not a terrible week, not a great week, but I mean a decent fantasy week for him. He had 10 targets. He was easily the most targeted on the team. We saw Debo leave with that shoulder injury. The X-rays did come back negative. They're hopeful he will not miss time, but again, we'll see as the week progresses and obviously provide updates on it. He only saw 1 target, which he did not catch. He had 2 rushes for 11 yards, 1.1 fantasy points, 15% of snaps. I mean, it's just a bad beat when guys you start get hurt. These are things you can't predict. I mean, it just sucks to see a guy like Debo go out like that. But again, X-rays negative, so we'll see about it. Something that scares me a lot is George Kittle, who did not get hurt, but by his involvement in the offensive game, it might as well seem like he was. He played the whole game, had 2 targets, caught 1 of them for a single yard, 1.1 fantasy points. And other than the 2 weeks that he kind of exploded, we've now seen 4 of the 6 games Kittle has played this year, 6 points or below full PPR.
Damn, yeah, I'm looking at that right now.
That is worrisome.
That is the thing for me about, like I've said before, I'll say again, I don't like drafting tight ends high at all because you put yourself in a position where you have George Kittle, you know what George Kittle's capable of every week. So you're not going to pivot to, a Jonnu Smith over him. You're not going to pivot to Luke, anybody. You're going to roll with George Kittle, and that's what it comes with is it doesn't matter what the matchup is, you're still going to put Kittle in. So you're going to have to just eat these weeks, and it sucks.
Yeah, and in a game where Debo's out basically the whole game, McCaffrey gets hurt in. We talk about how when they're missing one of the stars, the other stars kind of step up. I'm not completely blaming Kittle because Purdy they just couldn't get anything done offensively. You only throw for 125 yards. You only complete 12 passes. I mean, it was just a rough offensive week.
For me, Ayuk is the guy.
Yeah.
Is the guy in I mean, obviously you have Christian McCaffrey when he's on the field. But when it's not happy-go-lucky, we have everybody open to spread the ball around to yada yada. It's Brandon Ayuk. Like the 10 targets compared to Kittle's 2, and Kittle played all game. Like, I don't know. I like what I'm seeing for Ayuk. He is establishing himself as the wide receiver 1 there, even when Debo's healthy, in my opinion. So I'm more and more each week I'm liking Ayuk.
Yeah. And then, I mean, on the Browns side of the ball, it's tough to super elaborate things because it was PJ Walker. He by no means was absolutely terrible, but he also wasn't good by any means. I mean, he was 18 of 34, 192 yards, 2 picks, 5.78 fantasy points. It's what I expected from him coming into this game. I didn't expect him to go out there and, just torch the Niners. And when you only throw 192 yards, obviously your receivers aren't going to have the greatest weeks. Someone that had a solid week, Amari Cooper. He caught 4 catches for 108 yards on 8 targets, 14.8 fantasy points. And I mean, other than that, like Elijah Moore, he just hasn't taken the step that some people thought he would as the number 2 in Cleveland. He finished. No, go ahead.
It's just hard when your quarterback doesn't play football. So, especially this last 3-week period, you have week 4, DTR's playing quarterback. They couldn't do shit. They couldn't. The Ravens completely walked into Cleveland and shut everything down. It was a travesty for the Browns. Then they have a bye. So you're not seeing anything that week. Obviously, no one's playing. And then they have PJ Walker. And it's like when you have a backup quarterback, a lot of the times the number one receiver tends to get hyper targeted and everybody else is kind of left by the wayside.
Yeah. And I mean,
It's
it's,
just hard to give a clear judgment as long as Deshaun Watson isn't playing.
yeah. And I mean, but that's the tough part is, he has that shoulder injury. Who
Is that
knows
he
the
hasn't been
real,
playing? Yeah.
yeah, who knows the real significance? It's on his throwing arm. So, I mean,
And he's been
it's just,
cleared. He's been cleared to play.
yeah.
That's the craziest part about it is he was cleared to play against the Ravens. They go through the bye. It's a whole week. They have off. They come back against the Niners. He's still cleared to play and still doesn't go. Maybe he didn't want to play against the Ravens and the Niners with the shoulder that he didn't feel was 100%, whatever the case may be. I mean, he's already got all his money guaranteed. We're just speculating at this point, but he's not out there. So
Yeah. And it's a rotator cuff injury. I mean, that's gnarly. That is not
it's
something.
significant. It
It's
is.
not something you mess around with. So
No.
we just have to see. He very well could be back next week, and Elijah Moore's fantasy relevance increases a bit. But we're just gonna have to wait and see on that. David Njoku, I mean, he's an absolute soldier for playing in these games. I'm sure people have seen the pictures of the burns on his face. I mean, he is an animal for suiting up and going out there. He had a kind of a
I hate
quiet week.
the Browns, but all the props to David Njoku.
Yeah, I mean it's insane. He had a quiet week, 3 catches, 24 yards on 4 targets, 5.4 fantasy points. But again, that's why I said it's hard to critique, these receivers when you have a PJ Walker out there. So I mean, I still like David Njoku. He's a solid fantasy tight end depending on the matchup. He's like a fringe number 10 tight end, but he's in the mix of guys you think about starting. The run game is where I was kind of most intrigued in this game. Jerome Ford ran the ball very efficiently. He had 17 carries for 84 yards, caught 2 passes on 2 targets for 7 yards, 11.1 fantasy points, 50% of snaps. Against the Niners, that's a very solid week. And his counterpart, Kareem Hunt, 12 carries for 47 yards. He got in the end zone, 3 catches for 24 yards on 3 targets. Only played 37% of snaps, but 16.1 fantasy points. This is what I'm starting to think as the weeks roll on that we would see more is I think Jerome Ford will stay the lead back, but Kareem Hunt will get action in this offense.
Oh
He's
yeah,
going to
Kareem
get
Hunt's
his
going
piece.
to get action, and I mean, it's hard to look at this game and really draw too much from it due to the fact that you got to understand when, and I'm pretty sure their other running back, how many carries did he have? I'm not. I'll have to take a look at that real quick, actually. But let me see.
When Deshaun's out of the game too,
Yeah, okay. So no, the Pierre Strong didn't even get a carry in this one. It was Marquise Goodwin got a carry for 20 yards, Elijah Moore got a carry for 8, and PJ Walker. So, in my opinion, this is going to be the Kareem Hunt and the Jerome Ford show. Not in that order. Jerome Ford is going to be the number 1 back. Jerome Ford, in my opinion, is better at this point in time than Kareem Hunt.
Oh
is.
yeah.
Does that mean Kareem Hunt is not good? No. They're both running behind one of the better lines in the one of the better offensive lines in the NFL. So to me, especially if the quarterback's dealing with some issues, hell, I mean, Kareem Hunt is a running back. I'm more interested in the guys like Jordan Mason and so on and so forth, because you can go out and pick him up knowing that he is going to get some significant volume behind a line that can provide holes to run through, that can provide that 16-yard touchdown without getting touched. That's what we want. Even if it's just 2 guys is okay. That's fine. When it becomes 3, 4, we're mixing up, then no. I mean, when 2 wide receivers each get a carry, I'm not worried about a little jet sweep here or there. When you're getting 10 plus carries and they each, Kareem got 3 targets and 3 catches. Jerome got 2 targets, 2 catches. I like that.
Yeah.
I truly do.
But I mean, if you didn't have anything else, it was an ugly game.
No. Not really. Just I was very disappointed in the Niners kicker. He was one in the early season. He actually missed his first 2 kicks in this game.
His whole family was there too.
Yeah, I mean,
It's tough, man. He's a rookie. It's tough.
it is tough. I'm not saying that. Oh, I want to drop Jake Moody right now. But as far as like I said, if Nick Folk's out there, guy who hasn't missed in 70 attempts,
Yeah.
there's just more options. I'm not holding my he's not. I have to start Jake Moody every week type thing. Like it's the Cowboys defense or something. It's not. And yeah, it was a really ugly game. The one thing I will say, the Browns defense is
Looks
one
great.
that if you could pick them up, if they're not rostered right now, they're off their bye. So you're gonna have them for the rest of the year. Some matchups are tough, but if they get Deshaun Watson back, I don't think you're going to see too many weeks like you did when they played the Ravens in week 4, where the defense is just on the field so much that Lamar had 4 total touchdowns that week. What the hell are you going to do when you're on the field the whole time against Lamar Jackson?
Yeah.
I don't think you're going to see too many games where the Browns, let me look at the Browns are only giving up right now 15.4 points a game, 79 yards on the ground per game, and 121 yards through the air. So,
They're locked
I
down.
like that defense every week. Yeah, that's among the top. So I feel very comfortable starting them most weeks.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's all I really got for this one.
All right. Well, we appreciate you guys tuning in. As always, drop a like, subscribe, but also leave any comments for any questions concerning the game or just any advice you may need in fantasy. That's going to wrap it up for this video. Until the next one.
See you guys.